Warning, this show contains truth, sarcasm, and opinions that might offend the fragile, the fake, and the fact-free. If you're still wearing a mask alone in your Prius, triggered by American flags, or think CNN is a personality test, this ain't your safe space. We don't do censorship. We don't do scripted narratives. We do coffee, chaos, and common sense, served hot and unfiltered. So grab your mug, buckle up, and remember, the truth doesn't care about your feelings.
The world's spinning faster than Hunter Biden's hard drive. In the Middle East, J.D. Vance just touched down in Jerusalem trying to hold a fragile ceasefire together while everyone else is holding their breath. In Asia, Trump's team is cutting tariffs with India, turning a global trade war into a red, white, and blue business boom. And in Europe, Putin just slammed the brakes on ceasefire talks and ghosted the Budapest summit. The old world order is on life support, and America's riding the DNR. Welcome to Data and Dissonance, the only show that connects the dots between the chaos, the spin, and the script they don't want you to read. All right, America, the coffee's hot, the mics are live, and the world's losing its damn mind again. Which means it's time to bring in the most dangerous roundtable in talk radio. First up, the man who treats CNN fact-checkers like clay pigeons on a Saturday morning. The king of red caps and righteous rage. Brian. Next up, the guy who sees patterns in the chaos. He's basically a human corkboard with string and caffeine. Daniel, our independent thinker who keeps this circus halfway sane. Rachel. And rounding us out tonight, the voice of progressive reason who insists she's here to keep us grounded, but really just likes arguing with Brian. Skylar, I'm your host, Artie J. Roy III, reminding you, this ain't your grandma's talk show. This is Data and Dissonance, where freedom gets loud and facts get feisty. Now grab that mug and hold the line, because segment 1's about to drop. J.D. Vance in Jerusalem, ceasefire or powder keg? All right, let's dive straight into it. Vice President J.D. Vance just landed in Jerusalem to meet with Netanyahu and try to hold together a ceasefire that's hanging by a thread. The global media is calling it a diplomatic breakthrough. But I've seen more stable truces at a Thanksgiving dinner between vegans and hunters. The U.S. is trying to project strength in a region where every handshake comes with a hidden dagger. Biden's team used to talk about managing the Middle East. Trump's team is trying to reset it. But if this peace deal falls apart, it could light up the region faster than a Tesla charging station in a thunderstorm. So let's open it up. Is this a real moment of peace or just another press conference pause before the next rocket flies?
Look, Artie, I'll call it like I see it. J.D. Vance is doing what every serious conservatives wanted for years, walking into a hornet's nest with backbone instead of begging for applause from the UN. He's not over there with hashtags and hope. He's there with leverage. He's representing a president who's already reestablished deterrence. The moment Trump came back into office, Iran's proxies started checking their pulse again. You can feel it. American strength is back on the board. The difference between Biden's Middle East and Trump's Middle East is night and day. Under Trump, we had historic peace accords. Under Biden, we had chaos and cash pallets to Tehran. Now Vance is picking up the pieces, and you can bet the world's watching.
Brian's bringing the fireworks right out the gate. Daniel, what's your take? I know you've got a corkboard theory that ties this all to global elites and oil pipelines.
You're not wrong, Artie. Every peace effort in that region comes wrapped in pipelines, petrodollars, and surveillance contracts. J.D. Vance is walking into a meeting where half the players are smiling for cameras and the other half are cashing checks. The ceasefire looks noble, but behind the scenes, it's about controlling reconstruction routes, tech access, and intelligence data. It's not just about missiles, it's about metadata. You can't have that many global interests colliding without someone shaping the narrative. My bet? The same corporate hands that funded rebuilding Ukraine are already drafting the contracts for Gaza. Ceasefires aren't made for peace. They're made for profit.
Somewhere there's a Pentagon intern listening to this on speaker, sweating bullets right now. Rachel, cut through the smoke for us. Is there a genuine shot at stability here, or just another chapter of the same old dance?
I'll say this. Diplomacy only works when both sides actually want peace, more than they want payback. And right now, nobody's there yet. J.D. Vance is playing referee in a match where both teams think God's on their side. The humanitarian angle matters. Food convoys, hostage exchanges, civilian casualties. But the political pressure matters too. Vance's visit is designed to show the world that the U.S. can still broker deals and maintain leverage. Whether or not that lasts depends entirely on follow-through. If we actually back up our words with accountability and stop letting extremist wings dictate the terms, then maybe, just maybe, this truce holds.
Always the optimist, Rachel. I respect it. Skylar, I know you're probably the only one at this table rooting for diplomacy that doesn't come with a military escort. What's your read on this?
Honestly, Artie, I want to believe in peace efforts, but every time the US plays peacemaker, it turns into arms deals and photo ops. I appreciate that J.D. Vance went over there instead of sending another envoy, but let's be real. We can't keep throwing weapons and money into endless cycles and calling it stability. The people in Gaza and Israel deserve safety, water, medicine, not more geopolitics. If we want lasting peace, it has to come with humanitarian accountability, not just power plays and backroom contracts. And that goes for all sides, including our own.
That's the clash right there. Backbone versus balance. Realism versus hope. Whether this ceasefire holds or blows up in everyone's face, it's clear the stakes couldn't be higher. J.D. Vance might have just stepped into the most complicated pressure cooker on the planet. All right, let's switch gears from missiles to money, because the other war happening right now is economic. Word just dropped that the U.S. may slash tariffs on Indian exports from around 50% down to 15 or 16. On the surface, that sounds like a global trade reset. But dig deeper, and you realize it's more like a geopolitical chess move with a credit card limit. Trump's crew wants to tighten our alliance with India, box out China, and bring manufacturing partnerships under the red, white, and blue umbrella. Sounds patriotic. But every time a tariff drops, somebody somewhere's pocket gets lined. So, is this a win for American workers? Or another slick globalization gimmick dressed up in MAGA merch?
I'm calling this one a strategic win, Artie. Finally, we're making deals that put America first and actually build allies that matter. India's not China. They're democratic, tech-savvy, and hungry for growth. Lower tariffs mean more two-way trade. American energy, defense tech, agriculture, flowing east, while we get cheaper manufacturing and rare earth alternatives coming back. That's smart economics with teeth. The media will spin it as Trump cozying up to Modi, but this is pure geopolitics, strengthening the alliance that'll keep Beijing up at night. I'd rather see us trading with India than funding factories in Wuhan.
Somewhere in Beijing, Xi just threw his chopsticks. Daniel, I see that look. What's the conspiracy angle this time? You thinking global elites again, or is this one about digital currency strings?
Both, actually. Trade deals are the oldest Trojan horse in the book. Sure, they'll tell you it's about jobs, but under the hood, it's always about control. Data, energy routes, and tech licensing. That's the real play. Notice how the timing lines up. BRICS nations are pushing their gold-backed settlement currency, and suddenly the US dangles tariff relief to one of the key players, India. This isn't generosity, it's containment. They're trying to keep India from fully joining the BRICS financial grid. Call it what it is, economic battlefield maneuvering. And if you think the American worker's about to see any of those tariff savings, don't hold your breath. Those profits will be automated away faster than you can say, AI supply chain.
See, that's what I love about you, man. Every story you tell sounds like it should end with Morgan Freeman narrating, and that's how the New World Order began. Rachel, let's bring it back to reality before my listeners start buying silver bars in bulk.
Look, there's truth in both camps here. The deal with India could be a win, if it's implemented transparently. India's the world's fastest-growing major economy right now, and aligning with them could diversify supply chains away from China. But that only helps American workers if we make sure domestic production stays competitive. If this becomes another case of US companies outsourcing jobs under the banner of partnership, then we've learned nothing. It's about balance. Cooperation without dependency. If Trump and his team keep that line firm, this could be one of the smartest foreign trade shifts in decades.
That's the first optimistic thing we've heard all night. Thank you, Rachel, for temporarily lowering everyone's blood pressure. Skylar, you've been glaring at me like I just invested in Exxon. What's your take from the progressive side of the table?
My issue is simple. All these free trade deals sound great until you realize who gets left behind. Farmers here in the States still struggle while corporations profit off tariff loopholes. Environmental protections get watered down. Labor gets crushed under efficiency. And yeah, I know the argument better than China, but that bar's buried underground. If we're going to do trade deals, why not include green energy standards and fair labor clauses? Otherwise, it's just capitalism in a new costume. I want to see us build partnerships that don't exploit people or the planet.
So there it is. Brian says strategic win. Daniel says global chess move. Rachel calls it cautious opportunity. And Skylar wants to save the planet before breakfast. Maybe we can do all four if the adults stay in charge. But history says don't bet your paycheck on it. All right, before we dive into the Cold War sequel that nobody asked for, let's talk about something that actually keeps America running. Coffee and conviction. You already know the drill. This show's powered by the Data and Dissonance Coffee Line, roasted right here in the USA for people who'd rather wake up free than woke. We've got 3 blends that hit harder than a government audit. High Lakes Light Roast, bright, citrusy, and smooth enough to sip while you fact-check CNN. Rock Creek Medium Roast, rich, balanced, and built for long rants, road trips, and red-pilled mornings. Bitter Root Dark Roast, deep, bold, and unapologetically American. Just like this show. Every bag helps us keep the lights on, the mics hot, and the truth flowing uncensored. And while you're fueling your brain, check out the Data and Dissonance merch store. We're talking patriotic mugs, trucker hats, hoodies, bumper stickers, and shirts that'll make your HR department cry. So head to dataanddissonance.printify.me and grab your gear before the next episode drops. Because let's be honest, freedom tastes better with caffeine. All right, folks, time to head east, where the vodka's cold, the propaganda's hot, and the ceasefire just flatlined. Russia has officially rejected the latest ceasefire proposal, and the long-planned Trump-Putin summit in Budapest has been put on ice. Now, depending on which outlet you read, this is either a diplomatic setback or the start of World War III. But what's really happening here? Trump's been trying to strong-arm Putin into a stabilization deal that cools Europe down without handing over Ukraine on a platter. Putin, meanwhile, is playing chess while everyone else is arguing over checkers. The man doesn't blink. He waits. So, is this about leverage, legacy, or something far darker brewing under the surface?
Look, Artie, say what you will about Putin. The guy's a killer, but at least he's predictable. What drives me nuts is the media pretending this is some huge Trump failure. Give me a break. Biden spent years sending blank checks to Ukraine while getting 0 results. Trump steps in, tells Europe to pull its weight, and suddenly he's the villain for not bowing to NATO bureaucrats? Nah, this is realpolitik. Putin's posturing because he knows Trump's not going to dance for the cameras. You want peace? You start from a position of power, not apology. And Trump knows how to negotiate from strength. Hell, he wrote the manual.
Brian's coming in hot again. That might melt half of Siberia. Daniel, you've been pacing like a man who's seen the secret map behind all this. What's the deeper layer here?
Simple, Artie. Follow the pipelines. Every time there's a peace delay, energy contracts move in the shadows. The Budapest summit was never about diplomacy. It was about resources and digital control. You think Putin wants to sit across from Trump and talk about ceasefires? He wants leverage over Europe's energy addiction and access to data channels running through Eastern hubs. And you know what happens when 2 superpowers start arguing over bandwidth and barrels? The world economy twitches. The summit didn't stall, it was staged. Everyone's pretending to fight while carving up the profits behind closed doors.
You make it sound like Risk meets The Matrix. Rachel, you're the closest thing we have to the adult in the room. Talk me off the ledge here.
Well, Daniel's not wrong that energy's at the heart of it, but from a diplomatic angle, this delay's strategic, not catastrophic. Putin's testing boundaries, Trump's reinforcing them. What matters is whether communication stays open. A frozen summit doesn't mean a frozen channel. Sometimes leaders pull back to recalibrate, especially when both sides are trying to define the new post-NATO balance. The bigger story is Europe. They're nervous, divided, and finally realizing the US can't foot every bill. If Trump can turn that into shared responsibility instead of dependency, it could reshape transatlantic politics for the next decade.
See, that's the perspective you don't get on cable news. Logic with receipts. Skylar, you're up. I can see the steam already.
Yeah, because everyone keeps treating this like a game. Real people are dying while power brokers trade sound bites. I get it. Geopolitics is messy. But if the US really wanted to lead, we'd prioritize humanitarian aid and de-escalation, not posturing. Pulling out of talks only deepens suffering and gives extremists on both sides a rallying cry. Strength isn't just about flexing, it's about restraint. If Trump wants to prove American leadership, then lead with humanity, not muscle memory from the Cold War.
Fair point, Skylar. Though I'd argue restraint doesn't work too well when the other guy's pointing missiles at your borders. But that's the tension we live in. Power versus principle. Peace versus perception. Putin's betting that America blinks first. And history shows he's usually wrong about that. What we're watching now isn't the start of something new. It's the reawakening of something old. And the world better hope our leadership remembers how to play hardball. All right, folks, what a ride tonight. From J.D. Vance trying to hold the Middle East together with duct tape and prayer, to the US-India trade pivot shaking up the global chessboard, to Putin freezing diplomacy like it's 1985 all over again. The world feels like it's spinning off its axis. But here's the thing. While the headlines scream chaos, the truth hides in the fine print. Who benefits, who bleeds, and who's actually paying the tab? That's why we do this show. Not to worship party lines or push panic porn, but to peel back the spin and get to the pulse of what's really driving the narrative. So tonight, I want to give the crew one last round. No interruptions, no filters, just their uncut final word on what all this means for the average American trying to fill a gas tank, raise a family, and keep a little hope alive. Brian, you're up first. Burn it down, rebuild it, or remind us what the hell we're fighting for.
You know what drives me crazy, Artie? Watching the same people who built this mess pretend they're shocked that it's collapsing. We spent years under globalist leadership that cared more about optics than outcomes, and now Trump's team is the cleanup crew trying to rebuild a world they torched for profit. J.D. Vance is over in Israel doing the work of a man who actually gives a damn about peace through power, not peace through apology. The India trade deal? That's how you win. By building real alliances, not selling out to Beijing. And this Putin situation? It's just more proof that the only language tyrants respect is strength. The left still doesn't get it. America isn't the villain here. We're the stabilizer. When we lead, the world holds its breath. When we back down, everything burns. It's time people remember that freedom isn't free. It's earned, protected, and sometimes fought for in ways that don't fit neatly into your Twitter feed. I don't care what the pundits say. This country's better off with a president who negotiates like a pit bull instead of apologizing like a school counselor. The world doesn't need more empathy from America. It needs our resolve back.
You know, Brian makes a fair point about strength, but strength without strategy is just noise. What we're watching right now, across every headline, is a world testing whether America still has both. J.D. Vance is walking a diplomatic tightrope, and the fact that he's even in the room means something. But diplomacy isn't just about shaking hands or showing dominance. It's about keeping conversations alive when the rest of the world is ready to throw in the towel. That takes patience, intelligence, and restraint. 3 words that don't always trend well in today's politics. The India trade pivot could be a brilliant move if we balance it right. But if it turns into another corporate free-for-all, we'll lose more than we gain. The same goes for Russia. This isn't a moment for chest thumping. It's a moment for clarity. The American people are tired of being spectators in their own country's foreign policy. They want leaders who care about results, not just sound bites. We can be strong without being reckless, and we can be compassionate without being naive. If this week proved anything, it's that leadership isn't about being loud. It's about being consistent when the world's losing its mind. The people I talk to every day, families juggling bills, veterans fighting for their benefits, small business owners trying to stay afloat, they don't care about political grandstanding. They care about stability. They care about safety. And they care about truth. If America's going to lead again, it can't just be through military might or trade deals, and it has to be through integrity. That's the real power the world's been missing. Strength and sanity don't have to be opposites. They just have to share a table. And maybe listen once in a while.
That's Rachel. Always bringing it home with logic and calm in a world allergic to both. Daniel, my man, you've been connecting dots all night like a digital detective. Bring it home. What's the thread that ties this whole mess together?
You ever notice how the stories always line up like dominoes? One falls in the Middle East, another tilts in Asia, and the next thing you know, there's a crisis in Europe. But it's never random. The same global players who profited off chaos in the last decade are quietly moving the pieces again. The ceasefire in Israel, convenient timing for energy contracts and arms logistics. The India trade deal, a redirect away from BRICS, a way to keep the dollar's dominance just a little longer. And Putin freezing the summit, that's leverage, pure and simple. He's forcing the world to watch while he tightens control over energy and data infrastructure. Every one of these moves is about control of flow, oil, information, and influence. The scary part is how easily the media wraps these power plays in headlines about stability or peace. They make you think diplomacy is a Hallmark movie when it's actually a poker game played in backrooms with trillion-dollar chips. J.D. Vance might be the honest player at the table, but he's surrounded by people who've been stacking the deck for decades. If we keep treating politics like entertainment, we're going to wake up one morning and realize the show's over, and the audience lost.
That's Daniel, folks. Turning global politics into a spy thriller again, and I'm not even sure he's wrong. All right, Skylar, bring us home before I start buying gold bars and bottled water.
You know what all these stories really prove, Artie? That the world keeps running on the same script. Power, profit, and politics. Whether it's war in the Middle East, trade with India, or tension with Russia, the people at the top always seem to come out richer, while everyone else just hopes they can afford groceries. And yeah, I know everyone here loves the America First angle, but we forget what that really means when it comes to humanity. Being a global leader doesn't just mean winning deals, it means setting an example. That's supposed to be the American way. We could be leading the world in renewable energy, clean trade, and real humanitarian aid, not just weapons and slogans. Imagine if our foreign policy started from compassion instead of competition. If we actually treated peace like a goal instead of a photo op. The people of Gaza, the farmers in India, the families in Ukraine, they all want the same thing we do. Stability, dignity, and a future worth fighting for. We keep talking about freedom like it's an export. Maybe it's time we actually practiced it at home.
That's the progressive punch, right there. Heart before headlines. Passion before profit. And whether you agree or not, Skylar's right about one thing. Freedom means nothing if it's only for the few who can afford it. All right, you know how we do this. time for me to bring it all home. You know, sitting here tonight listening to this crew tear through headlines, theories, and facts, it hits me how much noise we're surrounded by every single day. Noise that drowns out common sense, noise that twists truth into theater. And yet, somewhere in all that chaos, there's still something worth fighting for. You can feel it when a leader stands up for peace without apologizing for strength. You can see it when trade deals stop being giveaways and start being guardrails. You can even sense it, deep down, when America starts acting like the moral compass again instead of the world's ATM. The ceasefire, the tariffs, the frozen summit, they're all just pieces of a bigger test. The question isn't whether the world's watching us. It's whether we're watching what's being done in our name. Patriotism isn't blind loyalty. It's accountability with a spine. We can love this country and still demand it act like the light it claims to be. That's the battle, not left versus right, not red versus blue, but truth versus the noise. And maybe, just maybe, if enough of us tune out the lies long enough to listen, we might just hear the heartbeat of a country that refuses to quit. So whether you're drinking that bitterroot roast, arguing in the comments, or sitting in silence after the show, remember this. The real revolution doesn't start in DC. It starts in how you think, how you act, and how you live when nobody's looking. I'm Artie J. Roy III, and this has been Data and Dissonance, where we speak truth, stir thought, and never apologize for either. Stay grounded, stay free, and I'll see you tomorrow at 5. Tonight's episode of Data and Dissonance is brought to you by the series that started it all, the Caleb Rourke thriller saga, written by yours truly. If you love the kind of grit, danger, and moral conflict we talk about on this show, you're going to live inside these pages. It all begins with the Covenant Protocol, where a covert operative uncovers a global network of corruption buried beneath America's intelligence agencies. Then comes the Prophet Directive, where faith, technology, and betrayal collide on a world stage. And this winter, the story continues with Book 3, Black Echo Rising. A darker chapter that asks one question. What happens when the system you swore to protect becomes the enemy you have to fight? Each book is packed with political intrigue, deep state secrets, and the kind of pulse-pounding realism you won't find anywhere else. So if you crave a story that bleeds truth, courage, and consequence, go grab the series on Amazon today. That's the Covenant Protocol, the Prophet Directive, and soon, Black Echo Rising, available now wherever you get your thrillers. Because some stories aren't fiction, they're warnings.